So you want to be a rock superstar, live large. Yeah, anyway. So we're going to build a mouth. Well, something like a mouth. And what does that look like? Where do we start? Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to hit Shift A and we're going to create a circle. We're going to come over to our curve menu, make it 2D and make sure it's both sides, and we're going to give it a material. Okay, so let's make it a nice material like blue, or let's make it blue. Yeah. Then what we want to do is we want to create a Bezier curve, right? So this is going to be our curve. And again, same thing, we want to come over to here. I just love to turn that stuff off. Okay, we want to come over, it's a 3D object, and we want to control our extrude on this. So we just want to give it, you know, a bit of an extrude, so then that way it's got some thickness. It's still paper thin, so there's no actual geometry thickness. You need to think about this. This is just like XYZ thickness at this point in time. Okay, and then we want to give it material as well. So let's go find our potential red lips. So this is going to be our shape. So we're just going to name this mouth. And then this is going to be our, we'll say top lip. We'll just call it lip top. Okay, so we've got, and then we'll just stick these into a new collection. So we'll just call this mouth A. All right, so far so good. Let's see if I can get through this without a hiccup. Okay, so what we need to do from the previous example is we want to parent these two together. And so instead of hitting Control P, we know there's a bit of a problem. So let's try and show you that problem. And then what we'll do is we'll use our parent constraint. Our child of constraint. Okay, so we can see the origin is in both places here. And what we're going to do is we're going to hit Control P and parent and keep transforms. So we can see they're parented and they're hooked up and they're connected to each other. All right, but the interesting thing with this is that our stroke line is not following the same line width as our circle, and we want them to follow the same circle. So how do we do that? Well, that's a great question. Thanks for asking, Rodney. So here we go. Basically, what we want to do is we want to have our rotation, and we're going to look for our tilt. And we're going to say we want this to be 90 degrees. And that's going to flatten it out. The other thing that we want to do while we're here is we want to change the vector. And we just want to select this to become automatic. So now we're left with what looks like a ball. And then I'm just going to lift this up on the Y a bit so we can just get a better read on it. So now we have this behavior, everything looks good, everything seems to be working so far, right? So we've got we've just parented it, we've changed the tilt on our stroke. Now we need to go to the next step and we want to hook up this stroke along this object. So basically we want to come in here, we want to say curve, and then get our eyedropper tool and say which curve object is it? It's going to be our mouth shape. And then we can see we have this action happening. So once we have one set up, then it's easy just to set up the next, right? So you can notice what happens here. If I start moving this object around, it's gonna change the stroke on here. If we enable this little button here, edit mode, display modifier in edit mode, so basically, as we move this object, I'll just move it in the y-axis, you can see it gets further and further away. So when we're animating this, with our animal add-on and we're inserting a key. In order to keep the stroke stuck to the edge of the mouth, what you want to do is you just want to be animating on the x-axis. That's it really, unless you're doing something kind of fancy and funky, then that's what you really want to be doing. Okay, so that's just going to be on the x-axis, and you can see there it's just yeah, default. Okay, so let's see if we can break this so everybody can see RX90. Okay, cool. So now we're looking at this thing in the front view, and everything seems to be going swimmingly. So I'm going to add an object key, and then say around frame 20, I'm going to add another object key as well. So we've got these two object keys, and this one here, what I want to do is I'm just gonna put more subdivisions in it. So this one has 4 subdivisions. This one has 8 subdivisions. I'm going to switch them around. Okay. So here we got 4, and then we're jumping to, you know, this crazy amount. So let's see if we can get this thing moving now. So let's go find our animal add-on. So here it is. The way that we turn it on is we come up to preferences. We know how to do that. So the hamburger menu, edit, preferences, and then we go add-ons, and we can just type in here animal, and we can see that's it there. I've already typed it in, and I think it already comes in with the word animate already in here. If it doesn't, you can just type the word animate and it'll pop up in this tab. Okay. And so basically all I'm going to do is I'm just going to have location, radius, and tilt checked. Key selected means whatever vertex you have selected in here, it's going to key. Basically, I'm not going to check that box. I'm just going to make it key everything every time. So now that I've keyed that, we can see it's just popped up in here. It all fits under our object, right, called mouth 01. Is this mouth 01? Yep, there it is. Okay, all fits into this container, right, this collection here. So mouth 01. And then we have our stop motion keyframes that are in here. And then we have our Bezier keyframes, our vertex data, or our geometry data keyframes. So let's change this up and see what happens. And there you can see it, right? As soon as we move this vertex data, all of a sudden, our information just goes bananas. So let's try and make a happy face. So here's our little bit of a happy face, and we can see it's not sticking to it. So let's insert a key. We can see that's working, but our vertex data is not sticking to it. Okay, and that's because it's parented. So let's clear that parent and see if we can fix this. So we're going to select our stroke, Alt-P, and I'm going to say clear and keep transformations, right? And what we want to do is we want to come to our constraints, and we just want to add our child off constraint and select our mouth shape. So you can see here now that they're not parented. They're both sitting on top of each other, right? So they're not stacked up on top of each other. And you can see that from the previous example as well. It's because each one of these are using a child off constraint. So this is kind of a really important process because for whatever reason, maybe Blender wasn't looked at or designed this particular way. So child of constraint is our savior child of constraint, superstar, the Superman of constraints for us at this point in time. Okay, so now we can see that's fixed our problem, and our our constraint is holding to that, no problems at all. So let's see if we can just add a few extra shapes in here and just test it out, right? Give it a run for its money. So we're going to have this, and we're going to click insert, and so here we can go, and then hey, and then we switch to our new object type. So before we go to our new object type, before we make the switch, let's say that we're going to close our mouth. So we're going to close it. So it's between letters, right? So we're just going to grab and scale and pull these points around and do whatever we need to, right? This is going to be our closed position, and we're just going to insert our key there. So we've got here our grimace, our smile, and we're coming into a closed position, and then we click and we have this keyframe here. So we are now in our new object data, right? So what we want to do is insert a new keyframe, and we want to, and I think we haven't tested this yet. So this is probably going to bug out or break or crash Blender. So I'm not going to do it, but ideally this is where at this frame here, we could hit the pin frame, and then we can use that pin frame to match up our next frame. So I'm just going to be a good little animator, and I'm going to take a stab in the dark. So I'm just going to scrub it backwards and forwards and see if I can work out where my keyframe data is going to be. I mean, where my vertex data needs to be positioned. Okay, so I'm going to push this one out here and here, push this one up. I'm going to have the mouth opening back up a bit. And you can see the bottom lip is getting pretty funky at the moment, and that is not something I'm really worried about. So here we've got this position, and then we're going to open it back up now. So let's do something nuts, or maybe somewhat nuts, right? Let's do this. Let's do that. Something crazy, some kind of crazy mouth shape. Okay, I'm not sure what letter this would be for, but it could be like a E or a kiss or something, you know, who knows. So this is our crazy mouth shape, and then we're just going to hit insert key. So now we get this kind of action, like mwah, right? So we get our object ideas switching out, and now our vertex data is also helping us tween using the Addon All add-on. So that's kind of the simplicity of it and how it's working. And the other cool thing is we can also put our object data on this as well. So we could scale this in at an object level. So let's just do that. Object level, scale in. There's our keyframe. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select all my vertex data, and I'm just going to switch them to be green. And then this one, I'm going to scale it up. And then I might flatten this up a bit and scale it in. And just move it over. And then here, how big is this? I'm just going to scale this on the Z-axis. So here we get a lot of mushy mouth action, right? So clearly this is just a demo to show you how the tools work. You could easily use objects information in here and just have the data just switching in and out using the object data, so just using stop motion. But anytime you want to tween that mouth, then you could be doing this. And so this could be like you could do a full-on object here, like all the mouth parts and everything in here, this particular way. So it's pretty cool. That's the way it works. So let's test the pin frame button to see if this is actually going to hold up. So let's put a pin frame here, and let's put a pin frame here, and so far so good. That's the end of my work day. And then let's put a new one here. Okay, so it looks like our pin frames aren't going to have any problems. So when you're actually, setting up that tween between the two objects, your pin frame is really going to help you determine, where that information is going to go. And I don't think our pin frame worked. Oh yeah, it did. Okay, so here, if I just clear this and I do a pin frame here, is it going to do it? Yeah, it is there. Okay, cool. And then if we come in and we select all this, we can change that data and insert key. Okay, and then control click on the pin frame object is gonna change that. Okay, so there's one last piece to this puzzle, and that is the stroke, right? So what we want to do is I'm just going to subdivide this, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Alt S, and I'm going to control the radius, right? So we can see here at the moment, I'm controlling this left-hand side, and this left radius, and it's changing the other side. I don't know how to fix that. I don't think there's an easy way to fix that. Let me just see. Z180. And let's see. Alt S. Nope. Yeah. Okay, so basically we're coming into the item here and we're changing the radius here. Okay. So that's a little bit intuitive. It might have been my fault on the setup. Definitely for you guys, something to play with and test. Okay. So the cool thing is, because we have on our modifier that little button checked, what we can do is we can position our keyframe and we can key the thickness of our lip all the way through. So if we have this keyframe here, and let's say, for example, we want to fatten our lips up at this point in time, we can just hit Alt S, we can scale these out, and we can go Insert. And so now we're going from thin lips to fat lips, right? Pretty fun. So let's find our next keyframe. So it's just here. I'm going to select everything and I'm going to scale it all down. I'm going to hit Alt S. I'm going to get it nice and tight here. Alt S. Oh, hang on. I want to make sure I'm on the stroke. On the stroke, yep. I'm going to scale this down and Alt S and insert key. So if we take a look at our mouth, we can see we have a key at frame 18. So if I get my stroke and I just move this to frame 18, I can then just scale this down, and then just remember we're just moving this along the X, right? So I'm just going to scale it up a bit, move it across a little, get it into place, and then I'm going to hit Alt S, scale this down, and insert a key. So if we zoom out, we now have all of this information. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Now, do we have to go through that whole process if we wanted to create a top lip? The answer is yes. No, you don't actually. You just have to duplicate it. So just Shift D the object. Bottom, and I'm just renaming it, right? And then basically, because we already have our keyframes in the right position, what we want to do is we're just going to move it along the x-axis and make sure you insert that keyframe. So I'm just going to scale it up a bit and then insert. And then the same thing here again. I'm just going to drag it along the x-axis and I'm going to scale it up a bit. I'm going to scale it down a bit. And insert. And then one more time. And then insert. Okay, so now we have our top lip and our bottom lip. And I'm just going to make this top lip a bit thinner. So any change that you always make, pretty much in 3D, you're always going to have to keyframe it. Okay, and so basically that's our object working, our basic mouth working. Using stop motion keys, animal keys, and just for fun, we'll put it over here. We'll create a keyframe. Then we'll have him smile. We'll zoom it up, scale it up, sorry. So the scale's working, and then we'll have it come back down, and then we'll push this keyframe over here. And yeah, okay, cool. And then basically what we need to do is we need to keyframe this data here, so we can just push it along and insert a key. And we'll just push this one along. Insert a key, and I'm just going to fix up this bottom lip. I'm going to insert a key here and push it back this way. So when you're doing something like this, it's good for you to set up a couple of rules for yourself, like the lip is always going to operate left to right, or you're always going to rotate that lip clockwise or counterclockwise. Because if you go, I'm going to keyframe it here, and then I'm going to keyframe it here, and then you're going to go back the other way and then keyframe it again, the lip's going to be moving around the mouth shape, all over the place. So it's like anything with animation, it's a hands-on process. So we take a look, here's our front view, and object keys. Object keys working, stop motion keys working, animal keys all working together. Okay, so that's just kind of basically how you can get strokes working around an object, how you can be working with strokes, working around an object as well. Obviously, if you've got some geometry nodes guru working with you, then you may be able to get this behavior working a different way as well. This is a very manual process, and then this whole process can also be dependent on the asset library as well. So you could save out these keyframes to the asset library and then just drag them and drop them onto your model. All right, guys, so I'm going to leave this one here and we'll move on to the next one.